Hello, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to watch this first 2020 Candidate Forum featuring those seeking to represent our area and the state of Iowa at the federal level tonight. My name is Randy Coffin. I'm the managing editor of the Spencer Daily Reporter. And on behalf of Northwest Iowa Publishing, Spencer Radio Group, and Spencer Municipal Utilities, I'd like to welcome our three candidates to the Spencer City Hall Council chambers tonight. It is our honor to host this event, and we thank the City of Spencer for allowing us to utilize this beautiful new facility. Right now, I would like to take a moment to introduce our three candidates participating this evening. First, Iowa 4th District U.S. House Democratic nominee J.D. Shelton. Iowa 4th District U.S. House Republican nominee State Senator Randy Feenstra. And incumbent Republican U.S. Senator Joni Ernst. Unfortunately, the Senate's Democratic challenger to Senator Ernst, Teresa Greenfield, was unable to make this event tonight. We did invite her, she just was not able to participate, so I want to make that very clear. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome members of each candidate's campaign team, as well as the regional media markets covering the event. Tonight's forum is being broadcast live on SMU Channel 2, KICD AM 1240, and the Spencer Daily Reporter Facebook page. It's designed to be an informative opportunity for voters to learn about each candidate, and it is our desire to avoid the traditional debate format and offer a more civil atmosphere. All questions, whether from the media panel or submitted from the public, must be applicable to all candidates.
Thank you very much, Randy, and it is great to be back in Spencer. I'd like to thank our host this evening. Again, I am Joni Ernst, and I was raised on our small family farm in southwest Iowa, and I have gone on to serve my community, my state, and my nation, first as a combat company commander, then as a local elected official, a state senator, and a United States senator. So I am the survivor of a sexual assault and domestic violence. And because of that, I am a tireless champion for our women and our survivors. I'm also a champion for our farmers, our veterans, and our working families. And it's really important for me to keep fighting for Iowa, and I do that by reaching across the aisle whenever I can. 60% of the bills that I sponsor also have Democratic support. I work in a bipartisan fashion, and Georgetown University ranked me as one of the most bipartisan senators in the past 25 years from any state, something that I am very, very proud of. So I am excited about continuing in the next 6 years fighting for Iowans. But in order to do that, I will need your support, and I will continue pushing back in this campaign against my opponent, Teresa Greenfield, and her liberal allies, which include those of liberal extremist environmentalists, those that wish government takeover of healthcare, as well as those that wish to dismantle our law enforcement and police. So our fight must continue, and I look forward to having that opportunity. Thank you.
It's a pleasure being back here in Spencer, and first of all, thank you for everybody. Before I really want to dive into things, I want to say my heart goes out to the elevator in Royal and down the folks down in the Gulf Coast right now. We know what Mother Nature and the destruction it's done here in Iowa, and I was proud that my campaign manager and I a couple weeks ago shut down our campaign for 3 days to bring the chainsaws out to help the people in Boone County and Hamilton County and in Story County. And thinking about how I decided to run initially, it all stems from my big inspiration in my life, which is my grandma Fern. She was an educator and she was a farm wife for most of her life. And the last thing she said before she passed was, "You need to take care of the farm." Well, as I travel all 39 counties, and currently we're on a 375 town tour, stopping in every single town, and what we're seeing is farmers have their backs against the wall. We've had 7 years of low commodity prices. We've had a renewable fuel standard being abused by this administration. We have a trade war where we're borrowing money from China to pay our farmers not to sell their products to China. And we've had decades of market consolidation squeezing our farmers on the input and on the output side. To elect the status quo, to continue on the same old, we're on a pathway towards kicking people off the farm. We're on the pathway towards more foreign ownership of our land, and that's the wrong direction we need to go. My campaign is proudly building a coalition of consumers, of workers, and of farmers. And with that, I just want to say thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much for having this event tonight. I want to thank the Spencer Daily Reporter. I want to thank you, Randy Coughlin, for moderating and putting this event on. This is the second time I've been here in this past year, so I truly appreciate what Spencer is doing. So I am Randy Fienstra. I am a father of 4 wonderful children. I have 3 children in college and 1 that's going into 8th grade. I am married to my wonderful wife, Lynette. We've been married 28 years, and we've lived all our lives in Northwest Iowa, in Hull, Iowa. I graduated from Dordt College and became head of sales of a large candy company called the Foreign Candy Company, and then also worked in a bank overseeing their entire insurance division. Through that time, I spent 12 years in the Iowa Senate, being chair of Ways and Means. And in the Iowa Senate, that's where I was a conservative, proven, effective leader, where we got things done. We cut taxes for income tax and property tax. We made sure we had a balanced budget every year. And when it came to March 12th of this past year, we had over $1 billion in the bank ready to fight this COVID virus. I also worked very hard to protect life, and we passed so many bills protecting life and making sure that we stood for this Second Amendment, gun rights. When I get to Congress, these are the same things that I want to do there. I want to be a passionate supporter of these areas. I also want to fight against the liberal agenda of Nancy Pelosi, where she wants to press on us the Green New Deal that would hurt or drastically hit our economy in Iowa. She wants government-run health care. She also wants to kill the American dream and implement socialism. We are a capitalistic society, and this is where dreams are created. I'm so excited tonight to be with my great friend, Senator Joni Ernst. We served together in the Iowa Senate. She was a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard, and she was the first female combat veteran in the U.S. Senate. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of what you stood for agriculture, so proud of what you stood for in business. And I can understand why your competitor is not here.
Senator Fienstra, I hate to cut you off here, but we run out of time. We need to keep moving along, but thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just thank the candidates for coming to Spencer tonight. I do the farm news on KICD. Farmers tell me every day they complain about high input costs for inputs and low prices that they receive for livestock. You support breaking up large conglomerates in both industries. Thank you.
Yes, I absolutely. This is one of the biggest things that I'm known for. In fact, 100 years ago was the breaking up of the Big Five, and the Big Five at that time represented 45% of the market share. Right now, we are in hogs, we're at 70% of the market share. In cattle, we are at over 85% of the market share. We are at a point where we are so concentrated that this pandemic has shown the vulnerability and of our food supply and the increasing amount of foreign influence, whether it's from JBS down in Brazil or Smithfield in China. We need to make sure that we're a secure nation, and we do that by making sure we're a food secure nation. I talk to farmers every day, and one of them, earlier in the spring, I asked what they planted, and they said, well, my brothers and I decided we're gonna go 75% beans this year instead of corn. And I asked why, and he goes, we're gonna lose less money that way. Not make money, but to lose money. And that's just where we're at. We have these get big or get off the farm policies, and we're going in the wrong direction. The USDA came out with a stat that said 1 in 30 dairy farms are not gonna be around in 2036. That's only 16 years. And we see just market consolidation in so many of these industries. It's squeezing the farmers on their input side, it's squeezing on the market side, and capitalism without competition is not capitalism. And we're getting in a dangerous point where we're so concentrated that we're driving people off the farm. And so with that, my campaign, my motto is America needs farmers and farmers need antitrust.
Thank you very much. Randy Feenstra.
Thank you. What a wonderful question. My family and I, we've grown up on the farm. My in-laws have a wonderful farm in Perkins, Iowa, and we sort hogs and We wake up and load hogs and work with the cattle, and I understand every day what producers are going through. And it's very tough right now. It's a struggle, whether you're a cattle producer, a hog producer, whether you're a crop farmer of corn or soybeans, right? The commodity prices are really challenging. But there's things that have to be done. I, along with Senator Joni Ernst, along with Senator Grassley, we're working with Attorney General Barr to make sure that we look at price discovery and we look at the monopoly that the packers have. It's not right. And we have to figure out how to break up the monopoly and make sure that we have a fair price that producers are getting paid. They're working their tails off right now. And it's sad to see that they are losing on every part of the commodity market. So this is a challenge. I look forward to engaging in this challenge and be passionate for what we have in the 4th District. That's being number 1 in corn and soybeans and cattle and hogs and dairy and eggs.
Thank you very much. Senator Ernst.
Yes, and thank you. This is an issue that we have worked on extensively at the federal government level, but there's a personal connection to this as well. And when I was a young girl in elementary, my mother actually worked for the ruble livestock auction in Stanton, Iowa. It was one of the first jobs that she took off of the farm. And so it was a real treat on Wednesday afternoon. I wouldn't have to ride the school bus home. I could go down to walk downtown to the livestock auction and hang out with the buyers in those seats and watch the activities. We also had a meat locker in Stanton, Iowa, and all of that has really gone by the wayside. That livestock auction is no longer there. That meat locker is no longer there. And through the years, we have seen the consolidation with the meat packers. And I agree, this is not an urban, this is an urban versus rural issue. This is not necessarily a party issue. I really do think that we need to diversify and have more of those locker packers out across the state of Iowa, to have more of those livestock auction activities. I was at a livestock auction not all that long ago, and those beef producers, the swine producers, and others agreed that we really need to break this up. And COVID-19 has really thrown a wrench into this as well, and has made it even more difficult with these situations at the meat packing plants. So if we can diversify, push out across the state, I think not only would we have a better supply chain flow of our food in rural America, but certainly I think the prices that are offered to those producers would be significantly higher. So not a party issue. I think it's rural-urban issue.
Matt McWilliams, you have the next question with the Spencer Radio Group.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on trade with China, and I guess what should the United States do?
Okay. Up first on this will be Randy Fienstra.
So it's been remarkable what has happened over the last year and a half, where we finally stood up to China, finally stood up to them and said enough's enough. And I am proud of President Trump standing up and saying, you know what, we've had unfair trade agreements for decades and decades and decades, and it's time to have fair trade. It's time to have fair tariffs. People don't realize what was happening. Their tariffs were three or four times higher than what we had in the United States. We couldn't compete. Now we're on a level playing field. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the future with the ag markets, with the manufacturing markets. Right? This is so important as we move forward in our U.S. economy and our Iowa economy, that we have fair trade. We saw this with MCA. What a great trade that we have. And we're going to see this as we move forward with China and Taiwan. Now, we have to understand that China is a communist country. And with China, we always have to be very watchful of what they're doing. And more importantly, with that being said, we have to make sure that we buy American and build American, so we protect ourselves and don't have to worry always about people like China and our trade.
Thank you. Senator Ernst.
Thank you. I do have a perspective from two different angles. One as being someone raised on the farm, soy, corn, and hogs, as well as someone who served in our nation's military. So the first point of view, as someone who is very, very interested in protecting our agricultural interests, is that yes, we need to continue negotiating with China on this. We have phase 1 done, and we hope to move into additional phases. The phase 1 China deal was large in part agricultural goods. And so that negotiation was completed, but with COVID, now we have been set back. And when I talked to our US trade rep just a couple weeks ago, I asked for an update on China. And he said that they are lagging behind. They're about 40% of their purchases, what they're required to do. And so they do have a steep uphill battle in order to get those purchases done in the next year and a half. But they are still purchasing, and we saw a record purchase of corn by the Chinese at the end of July. So they are stepping up, but they need to do more. And just as Senator Fienstra said, you know, when I was doing a farmer roundtable as we were going through negotiations, it was right here in Northwest Iowa, I had a soybean farmer. He stood up at the end of our meeting, slapped his hand on the table, and he said, you know, I get why President Trump is doing this, but what I don't get is why we didn't have a president prior to this that would stand up for us farmers. So it's a good thing that we are engaging China with this course of action. But I will say, as a military commander, we do need to make sure that we are protecting American interests first and moving our supply chain and our resources back to the United States.
Very good, thank you. J.D. Shelton.
All right. So I would first start off by saying that even though I'm the only Democrat here tonight, I have a very unique perspective when it comes to the Democratic Party and where we stand on a lot of issues, especially when it comes to agriculture. One of the things I'll say is President Trump going after China, I don't think is the wrong idea, but the way he went about it. We had no leverage, and when you don't have any leverage, you're stuck. And so with the phase 1 deal, I would argue we are not done with that. We're billions of dollars behind. In fact, we're not even halfway there for what this year is supposed to be allotted. If we're even a quarter of the way there, I'm pretty sure that we're not there yet. So this is an area where I get very frustrated, and one of the reasons I decided to run was because, again, I hear career politicians continue to sell out the American worker, the American farmer, and also the American consumer. And so as a result, we have look at our PPEs and our ventilators. We had to rely on China for them, and that's just wrong. I mean, we got to make sure that we are protected, and this gets back to antitrust too, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But if we're going to compete in this global economy and on agriculture, we got to find a way that farmers have a role to play in this. And what we've seen are farmers pay into the checkoffs on soybeans only to get screwed out of the market. And so as China changes the global supply chain and they're going more and more and buying record amount from Brazil, we got to be serious about where we're going to head as a nation and taking on China. And especially when 1 in 4 hogs in the state of Iowa and in this nation are owned by China, with 400 farms being owned by China, again, I'm scared where we're going if we accept the status quo.
How would you evaluate the United States' position on the world stage? What are some of the biggest threats to our security?
And we will start with Senator Ernst.
And again, I have a unique perspective as a combat veteran, and the only combat veteran running for federal office on the ballot in Iowa this year. And I do believe that we have a strong presence on the world stage. And yes, this administration has a very different way of approaching issues when it comes to international affairs, but we certainly have seen results. I would use NATO as an example. He stood strong with NATO, and I felt that his perspective was right, and that the United States was carrying the water of so many other nations. Nations that agreed to the treaty, they were part of NATO, but were not standing up and providing the requirements per the treaty. So the president pushed back on that, and of course then we saw many nations that decided, wow, we need to step up and start contributing. So I think that that was an important step forward, and we do see many of those nations joining together in a much stronger NATO. Certainly there are some issues that I will disagree with the president on, and a couple of years ago he wanted to withdraw troops from Syria just very suddenly. And so I went to the Oval Office, I spoke personally to the president and explained to him why I believed it was very hasty. And he agreed to wait on the withdrawal of those troops for over a year, which allowed our allies to step up their presence in the region. So I do believe that the United States has a strong role to play around our globe. We are that beacon of freedom and opportunity that others look to for guidance and leadership. And so I feel very strongly that we should continue to engage where necessary to protect our American values.
Thank you very much. J.D. Shelton.
Yeah. So I would like to address a couple things first. As a nation, and when we talk about security, I think the next war that we talk about, I don't view it as something with artillery or anything like that, or bombs. I feel it's cyber war, if it's not already happening. And that's somewhere that we need to get a lot better, because you look at technology and where we're going with technology. China owns more patents on these things than the United States does at this time, and so that scares me. Another thing, Russian bounties on our military. That is just awful, and it came out in the news about a month or two ago, and the fact that it just gets swept by, like it's ridiculous. We need to protect our current military, and first of all, I would like to address, thank you for your service and everything. That means a lot. And so, and then I also want to talk about, as I go around all 375 towns, what we're seeing here is we have not recovered, and a lot of rural America has not recovered from 2008. And we see that as people having to drive a half hour just for fresh produce and fresh meat in a district that we're the second most agriculture producing district in the world. That's nuts. If we're gonna be that leader, if we're the wealthiest nation in the world, and I want somebody to come to the 4th District and see it. And we have Dollar General coming in and undercutting our local grocers. We're seeing a lot of towns just struggling right now, and we're going in the wrong direction. And if we continue to elect the same old status quo, we need change. In order to have change, we need to change who we vote for.
Thank you very much. Randy Feenstra.
I want you to think about where America stands on the world stage. We are America. And you know what? All right. I want you to think about where we stand on the world stage. We are America, right? Our enemies fear us. You think about North Korea. You think about Iran. They have backed off. That's great to see, because we are a powerful, powerful nation. You think about NATO. You think about the World Health Organization, right? We have to hold them accountable. If we're paying into these organizations, then we also have to expect results from them. You think about what we did in Jerusalem and what we've done for Israel, right? That is our greatest ally in the Middle East. And we have moved the embassy to Jerusalem. That's exciting to see. Think about how great that togetherness is when Israel is one of our great allies in an area that has no friends with America or with them as Israel. So I'm excited where we're going, that we draw a line in the sand and say, this is where we are, this is who we are.
What do you think about the current racial recovery measures, and is there something you'd like to see done differently?
All right, we will start out with J.D. Shelton this time.
So we heard the governor last night talk about with the Trump and what he was able to do. Well, she asked for more money than what we're getting, and there's still 26 counties that are still not getting it from an individual standpoint. And so, having gone down there in our campaign, taking 3 days break and chainsawing so many limbs and trees that are broken, it was heartbreaking to see an entire field shut or just completely flat, and to know that a whole year's worth of salary has really struggled there. And so, we're really struggling to see how we can come out of this. It took a while to get the things going in the right direction. We still, as of earlier this week, still have people without power. And so I will say that to see the amount of linemen and women working their tails off. As I was driving on Highway 20 and so many different places, we were seeing just truck after truck going down to help out. And you see how these Iowa communities come together. When we were down near Slater, they were having a spaghetti dinner that night, and it just, towns take care of each other. Small rural communities take care of each other. And it was good to see that we're seeing it from a local standpoint, but from a federal standpoint, I'm worried about the harvest when so many grain bins are completely damaged with storage and with these low commodity prices because of the trade war and because of the abuse of renewable fuel standard. I'm worried where a lot of these places are going to store their grain. And so I would like to see a little bit more.
Thank you very much. Randy Feenstra.
Well, I want to applaud our governor, Governor Reynolds. I want to applaud Senator Joni Ernst, Grassley. Right away they stepped up. We had President Trump come down just several days after the event, declared disaster declaration in these counties. I mean, Iowa's never seen this before. I mean, when you have 10 million acres of corn that has been flattened. Now, the blessing is there's a lot of crop insurance out there, but it's just devastating to see, and how the federal government is now stepping up and how our government officials have stepped up and made a difference. We were in several places in Nevada and other places. Our whole campaign team got out and brought water, did a lot of cleaning of brush and trees. But the big thing that I noticed was it was neighbors helping neighbors. It was Iowa. It was Iowans working together to help one another. And that's amazing to see. It's just amazing to see. So as the government steps up and help, and as neighbors help out and step up and help, as the state helps out, we're going to get through this. We will get through this. And we will be better as we move forward. But there are challenges ahead.
Senator Ernst.
This was a devastating event, and I have seen many natural disasters, as many of us have through the years here in Iowa. And I think about the time in 2008 when I responded as a member of our Iowa Army National Guard over to Cedar Rapids during that flood event. And the devastation that I saw on the ground at that time was incredible. I just couldn't believe that we could ever see anything worse here in the state of Iowa. I also worked as a National Guardsman through the 2011 flood event in western Iowa, down in my home area. But I tell you what, folks, I have never seen anything like the devastation that the derecho brought to our great state of Iowa. And it touched 10 million and better crop acres across our state out of the 24 million crop acres that we have. In the city of Cedar Rapids, again, very familiar with that city from the flood event of 2008, it was much, much worse. And it still is today. They are still struggling in Cedar Rapids, trying to get electric backup, communications through the internet, and making sure that those families are fed and safe. So we still had a lot of devastation out there, and we're leaning heavily on FEMA to make it right. We did have a fast federal response, and I spoke personally with President Trump about the derecho that weekend after it occurred, and said, please, please come to the state of Iowa. And he said, do you have the disaster declaration done? I said, yes, the governor turned it in last night. And he said, you tell her I'm approving it. So fast turnaround from the federal government. I pushed the president very hard in that area, but there is a lot more to do. And I'm so proud of all of our Iowans that have stepped up, every last one of us here, out and about helping these communities. And that's what Iowans expect of each other, to lend a helping hand, and they expect it of their elected officials as well.
If you're a Democrat, please, if you're a Democrat, please share a personal belief that your fellow Democrats may not like to hear. And if you're a Republican, please share a personal belief that your fellow Republicans may not want to hear.
All right, good question. All right, Randy Feenstra, start this one off.
I'm not sure if they don't want to hear this or not, but I just want to tell you my entire foundation and who I am is based on my faith. My faith is my rock. My faith is everything I do in society. And I believe that we were all created as image bearers of God to further His kingdom. And I know that's not always popular to profess faith in the political arena. But for me, it's who I am and what I stand for. It's why I am pro-life. It's why I am passionate about helping others. And that's why I'm in this race, is to make a difference for society. That we can bring up society and have a great America and have a great future for this great country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Feenstra. Joni Ernst.
Thank you very much. So I will run up against a number of issues, I think, in my party, outside of my party, but I think just as Senator Feenstra said, it comes down to what you believe, what are your personal values, and what do you bring to the table. And so I was leaving an event one evening during it was prior to the presidential caucus time frame. And I was at an event where Ben Carson had been speaking, and I was leaving the church where he was speaking at, and I was confronted by a gentleman and his son out in the parking lot. And he said, "Why are you doing that bill with Elizabeth Warren?" And I was like, "Oh, well, okay." And he was like, "You should not be working with that woman." He obviously was a strong conservative, and he didn't like the fact that I had signed on to a bill with Elizabeth Warren. And it really made me upset, because even though Elizabeth and I may see totally separate on so many issues, we're 180 degrees difference most of the time, we had found a way to come together. And I explained to that gentleman and his son, as they were confronting me in this parking lot, that the bill I signed on to work with Elizabeth Warren was for veterans. And it was addressing the issue of traumatic brain injury. And it's something that we should all agree on. And so one thing that maybe some Republicans won't like, but I'm driven by my personal values, is the fact that if I find someone that has a shared passion, I don't care what the letter is behind their name. If we have a shared passion, we should be working on those issues together. And I know that may not be popular with some, but I absolutely believe it is the right thing to do.
Thank you very much. J.D. Shelton.
I think this is the easiest question for me because the Democratic Party is such a big tent party. And so I heard Randy mention earlier about Nancy Pelosi and socialism and stuff like that. So I'm not a socialist, so there's that. I would vote against Nancy Pelosi to be leadership. I said it last time, I'll stand by it this time. But the biggest thing I think is we rejected the DCCC, the entity that oversees. I want to make sure that our campaign is run out of Sioux City, Iowa and not Washington, D.C. And we did that. They told us we'd be a top 5 race and wanted us, they wanted their hands all over our campaign, and I said no. And so we want to do things our own way, and our own way is getting out to all 375 towns in Iowa's 4th Congressional District. You'll see me driving Sioux City Sioux, our campaign Winnebago RV, and that's how I know how to campaign, meeting people where they're at. And we welcome everybody. We have a campaign rally tomorrow night in Storm Lake, and we invite Democrats, Independent, Republicans, people who've never voted before, and we welcome conversation. We have one rule about being respectful and being civil, but other than that, we welcome everybody to the table. And I feel that's something that the way modern politics is people tend to stay at home and fundraise. And we shown that in rural Iowa, I want to listen to people. I didn't pay pollsters to tell me what I should be saying up here. I went around to small towns and listened to Main Street and hearing about those issues there. So.
A number of priorities, and this is the issue that I hear a lot of people ask about, what's your top priority in this race? And there really is not one, there's not even two or three priorities. I would say that there are so many issues that our nation is facing right now, but obviously first and foremost, Iowa being the great agricultural state that it is, I do think that we have a lot of issues that we need to continue pressing at the national level with agriculture, whether it is the issues that we are seeing in our meat production industry and the price differences between our producers and the packers. That is one issue. The renewable fuel standard is another one, and making sure that the oil refineries are not able to find loopholes that exist within our law, and that we are upholding the spirit and the letter of the law. But also veterans are important to me, and as a combat veteran, I know how important it is that we are stepping up and protecting those that have taken their time and worn our uniform to protect this nation. A bill that I just had passed through the Senate addresses third-party reviews for those individuals who have been treated at VA hospitals by physicians with revoked licenses, people that were illegally hired by our VA. Tony French, who is a Marine veteran from Iowa, underwent brain surgery for a tumor and found out later on that tumor was not removed, and the physician that had done the surgery had his license revoked. So we need to work on those issues for our veterans. And as well, prescription drug costs and healthcare costs, we have to drive those down. And I think supporting Chuck Grassley's prescription drug bill is one of the first steps in ensuring we do that.
Thank you very much. J.D. Shelton.
So we talk every day on the campaign trail about fix, fight, and secure. And fix is fix healthcare. As I drive around all 39 counties, there's Lord knows we keep the ethanol industry alive and well with the as much as we can with the RV. Almost every gas station we stop at, there's a donation box from someone who just got sick or someone just in the hospital. With the amount of GoFundMes and the amount of pancake breakfasts in our communities, I mean, we're the wealthiest nation in the world, and we haven't figured out healthcare. We pay more per person than any country in the world, and it's nuts. We're not getting a very good bang for our buck. Then we talk about a fight, and fight is for fight for an economy that works for everyone. And right now we see, I mean, it is so clear that corporations in the top 1%, we value, are doing well, and we value wealth, but we don't, and investments, but we don't value work and the working class. And I say, when you love your country, you fight for the people who make it work, whether it's the truck drivers, the farmers, the nurses, the teachers. Those are the backbone, those people are the backbone of this district, and those are the people we're fighting for. And then the last is secure our democracy. We don't get anywhere without cleaning up the special interests that are dictating our democracy. Why are packers able to squeeze the farmers, hurt the consumers, and suppress the workers with their money? It's because they're giving millions of dollars to politicians, and they're hoping to get that vote, and so it's a cycle. And again, they give money to the politicians, politician votes to, like a tax bill of 2017, to allow more money in their hands, to incentivize it to give more money. It's a cycle, and we got to break that up.
Thank you. Randy Fienstra.
As our founding fathers said, we have the right, they declared this, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The first thing they said is you have the right to life. Life is the single most important thing that we can offer anybody. I am extremely pro-life. That's my number one issue. We have to ban abortion. Number two, that no one ever talks about, and it's frustrating to me, is that we have a $26.5 trillion debt, and it will probably get close to $30 trillion by the end of the year. And people don't realize that if our interest goes up, or if other little things happen, China sells some of our bonds, we're going to default. I mean, this is serious business. We got to start having a balanced budget. This is another top priority that we must start balancing our budget, because if we don't, America will not be there for my children. Social Security won't be there for any of us. This is a serious, serious issue. And then finally, obviously, agriculture. Agriculture in the 4th District, like I said, we are either number 1 or 2 when it comes to corn and soybeans, cattle, hogs, dairy, eggs. We need an effective, passionate voice to make a difference on the Ag Committee in Congress. And these are the 3 things I will dramatically fight for every day.
I think what we've seen in the renewable fuel industry and ethanol is it's a blatant attack by this administration. We have 98 waivers that can easily, they can reject right now. There's nothing holding this administration back. And what that means, we had 8 million acres of corn that was destroyed by derecho. Well, the 4 billion gallons that have been lost by this administration picking big oil over our farmers has cost us over 12 million acres. And this 98 waivers will be even more than that.
Yes, Senator Ernst.
Thank you. And I fought very hard to get E15 year-round with this administration. And this is the administration that did put in place E15 year-round. I would remind everyone that the Biden administration, Biden-Obama administration, had 8 years to get that done and never took a single step forward. So Kamala Harris, our Democratic vice presidential pick. So sitting in the Environment and Public Works Committee, she sat across the dais from me. She voted no on E15, voted no. Only Democrat that supported, Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Just food for thought as you approach this election season.
Randy Fienstra.
Yeah, ethanol is so important. That's why I passed the bill. I actually authored the bill. It's called the differential bill to push the agenda on E15 and B11. Right? This is so important, and I support the removal of Director Wheeler. I think he has not helped our ag industry at all. He's specifically not helped the ethanol industry and the waters of the U.S. There's been a lot of issues with this gentleman. It's time for him to be removed.
We are now at a point today, even, where professional athletes are boycotting their sport to bring attention to racial justice. Do any of you see a solution to the cultural divide that we are experiencing, and what is the path forward?
And we will start with Randy Feenstra.
Hey, Russ, that's a good question. That's a really great question. I think I go back to my faith. I think we all have to understand that we're all image bearers of God. God created us for a purpose. God created us for a reason. And once we do that, once we see people in that vein, we can start bringing unity. We are Americans. And as our founding fathers said, that we are bringing forth a better union each day, each week, each month as we grow as a nation. It's devastating to see what's happening around the country and the divide. But as Christians, as people who are Americans, we have to get together and collaborate and understand our differences and learn how to be kind and love one another in all our different aspects.
Senator Ernst.
I also believe in that love and kindness, and I think as a state and a nation we should be so welcoming of others that have differences. And I was frustrated because in the United States Senate we offered up a package that would correct some of the injustice that we have seen out there through criminal justice reform, police reform. And it was drawn up and presented to the Senate at large. And the Democratic senator said to Tim Scott, who is a Republican senator from South Carolina, said, "I'm sorry, but we don't like this bill." Senator Scott said, "Well, I'll give you 5 amendments." And they said, "That's not good enough, we want 20. And he said, "I'll give you 20 amendments." And they said no, and they got up and walked out of the room. So it's not that they want to find solutions. Now my opponent will support a position of dismantling our police, not just correcting injustice as it is out there, but actually getting rid of the police, which is not the direction that Iowans want to see. I have been blessed. I've served in the United States military, which is one of the most diverse institutions that you will find in our great United States. And I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing people of all different colors, all different religions, all with one goal of supporting and defending our great United States. I know that we can find a way forward, but the answer to that is that we have to sit down and we have to work through these issues. I was blessed to be invited to sit down and visit with Representative Akeo Abdul-Samad and the African American leaders in Des Moines, and I took away a lot of great lessons. 2 ears, 1 mouth, folks. We should use them proportionally.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. J.D. Shelton.
Yeah. So I too am a man of faith and a strong faith, and I think of a Proverbs that has really struck me the last few months as we've gone through such unrest in this nation. And it's speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, ensure justice for those who are being crushed. And I just come back to that time and time again and seeing so many just horrific videos, unfiltered, and how did we get there as a nation, and where do we need to go? And so, you know, as somebody who's from Iowa and is struggling with this, I would go back to when I played baseball, and I was a teammate of somebody from 6 of the 7 different continents. Never played with anyone from Antarctica. But I think of it like, I don't care where my shortstop came from or the color of their skin. I didn't care if they're from Delaware, Puerto Rico, or Texas. I didn't care who my left fielder voted for in the last election. We worked together for that common good. And it just breaks my heart to see just the civil unrest happening right now, and what we've seen in this nation, and the injustices that have happened and continue to occur. We need to move together as a nation, move forward, and it's not always easy. When there's change, it's difficult and it's struggle. And so at this time, and just seeing the heartbreak, but I'm glad to see especially professional athletes getting active and using their platforms to better this nation.
I just want to say thank you, Randy. Thank you for putting this on. I want to thank Spencer, the Spencer Daily Reporter, and all the radio stations that are here, and all that are listening. I grew up in Iowa. I grew up in a little small town of Hull, 2,000 kids, 2,000 people. I delivered papers 6 days a week when I was 9 years old until I was 14, and then worked at the local bakery, waking up at 2:45 in the morning to get there at 3 to cut bread, to make donuts. Went on to college at the local school 9 miles down the road at Dover University. But I had to pay my way. You know how I did it? I lugged hogs. I lugged hogs at Supreme. I learned how to work. I learned an honest day's work, and what I can get out of that, I got a wonderful education. This is what America's all about. America's all about working hard, being happy, and living the dream that anybody can have. And it scares me to think about what other people are saying, where you have the Democrats, the liberal Democrats, of saying we got to push the Green New Deal, which would destroy our agriculture community in our nation. Pushing the fact of government-run health care. Pushing the liberal agenda of socialism. We are a capitalistic society. We have, for generation after generations, exceeded and excelled based on our talents and abilities. And we need to continue that in our schools and how we educate kids. I love this state. I love the 4th District. I look forward to serving every Iowan in Congress.
J.D. Shelton.
Well, thank you again for having us here. This has been a treat. And I just wanted to say that, you know, our campaign is different. And I'm a different type of candidate. I didn't get asked by a lobbyist to run. My campaign doesn't take corporate PAC money. We didn't hire consultants to tell me what to say. What we did was we went around to all 39 counties. We did that 3 times, at least 3 times last cycle. We're continuing to go to every single county. We went to towns of under 1,000 people last fall in the Don't Forget About Us tour. And we meet people, and we invite everyone at the table. The proudest thing that I was last cycle was we got 25,000 more votes than there are even Democrats in this district, and that's because we welcome people to the table. And it's about showing up. And what I hear time and time again, people are tired of career politicians. People are tired. You know, when we say the free market always prevails, well, right now the free market has allowed for monopolies
to screw over the American farmer, to screw over the American consumer, and to screw over the American worker. The packers down in Sioux City, the workers there are struggling. They're considered essential, but they're getting paid the same amount that they did in 1984 when my family moved from Nevada, Iowa to Sioux City. And so if you want a different candidate, if you want a different person who will show up and considers this a service, go to ScholtenForIowa.com. That's SCHOLTEN, the number 4, IOWA.com. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And our final closing remarks tonight will come from Senator Joni Ernst.
Thank you, Randy. And I do want to thank everybody for allowing us to come in and express our ideas this evening. And again, I am Joni Ernst, and I was raised on a small farm in southwest Iowa, and I was so blessed that my parents taught me the values of faith, of hard work, and of service. And my life has been dedicated to serving Iowans, my community, and my country. In one uniform or another, I have lived a life of service. I'm going to redirect some of my closing comments right now because Mr. Scholten brought up the point, it's about showing up. I am sitting up here by myself as the lone United States Senate candidate because my opponent, Teresa Greenfield, refused to show up this evening. Iowans expect more from their elected representatives. This is the time we should be fighting to earn your vote, to express our ideas and our thoughts to the future. And my opponent refuses to come out of her basement and face Iowans, hear about their challenges, and learn about their opportunities. I have served in the United States Senate for 6 years, and it has been the greatest honor of my life. Every year, I do the 99 county tour because I want to hear from Iowans. I want to know what you are thinking and how I can best serve you in the United States Senate. It is about showing up.